EMS and police, and it's just like,
Time is 7 o'clock, and we'll call to order. That's right, City Council meeting for April 22nd, 2019. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. Keller?
Here.
Mr. Browning?
Here.
Mr. Rohr? Here. Mr. Hellinger?
here,
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Here.
Mayor Riggle?
Here. Tonight's invocation will be led by Pastor Allison with Terra Nova, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll all please stand.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, this weekend we celebrated the highest of the Christian holidays with Easter and the resurrection. And today has been a beautiful day with the sun. And yet, I thank you that these faithful servants are here tonight serving the city, serving this people, doing their job diligently. And I pray your blessings on them as they work hard to ensure the safety and the well-being of this entire community. They have a heavy burden to carry, and so I pray for each of them that they would feel your warmth and your presence around them as they seek to serve in this way. I pray that you would watch over even the proceedings tonight, and that in all things you would be glorified, and that we would see this wonderful town continue to grow and to be all that it can be, so that it may be a light. In Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Item 4 is the approval of the motion summary of the regular meeting of council held April 8th, 2019, as recorded and transcribed. What is the wish of council?
Move approval.
second,
I have a motion by Mr. Schaefer, a second by Mr. Browning. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
yes,
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes, motion carries. Item 5 is the consent agenda. If you'll please read this on the record, Elaine.
Item A, acceptance of the motion summary of the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting held on March 13th, 2019 as recorded and transcribed. Item B, acceptance of the motion summary of the Sister City Advisory Board meeting held on January 9th, 2019 as recorded and transcribed. Item C, resolution number 19-20, a resolution authorizing the extension of the school zone for Conger Elementary School to 300 feet east of the easternmost school property line on East Winter Street, which extends onto East Central Avenue, State Route 37 for westbound traffic.
Thank you.
Move for approval of the consent agenda.
second,
I have a motion by Mr. Schaefer, a second by Mr. Browning. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
yes,
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes, motion carries. Item 6 is time set aside for letters, petitions, or public comments for anything that is not on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward this time? Yes, sir.
Respected Mayor.
No, excuse me, you'll have to come forward to the microphone.
This is my first time.
That's okay, and after you sit down, we're gonna have you give us your name and your address for the record.
My name is Chaitanya Tatineni. Address is 561 Buena Park Drive, Delaware, Ohio. Respected Mayor, council members, and all the citizens of Delaware City. I represent a cricket organization, Delaware Cricket Club. We have been reaching out to the Parks and Recs and also to city manager's office and mayor's office as well in regards to help for securing a cricket field in the city of Delaware. So we right now play across 3 states, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, and we have been the champion team with no home ground. We don't have facilities in our city, so we have been using the fields from other cities like Hilliard, Columbus, and Dublin, which they already have multiple fields. So we've been using them, and it would be a great help for all of us. It's a large community, diversity perspective. It brings a new sport for our kids. I mean, we want to encourage the kids to get into this game which would give them a new dimension, open up a new dimension to try this new sport. And you never know, I mean, they might excel, and this could be a great opportunity for everybody. So we just wanted to bring to council's notice that there is a big cricket organization in the city that is looking for a facility for their home ground.
Can I ask you a question? How large is this committee right now?
So right now we are at 60 people in the club, registered club as a members, but as a playing community, there are more than 150, I would say.
Have you reached out to the YMCA at all?
We have talked to Parks Director Mr. Miller, and he has been very supportive of us, and he has provided various options on what we can do and all that. Right now, what the latest update I have got is they are waiting on some budget. They have some budget issues going on, but if there is anything that we can do or the city can do to help us to expedite the process, it would be great. Because right now, as you all know, the city has expanded a lot, and even to get to any other city after 5 o'clock to do some practice or play games, it's taking for at least hour and a half. So the commute getting longer, it's opportunity for the other teams that's traveling from Kentucky, Indiana, and Pennsylvania as well to come and play. It's a great opportunity for us to showcase that, hey, we have a cricket field so that you can come and play and enjoy the game.
Well, if you want to stick around, Mr. Miller is giving a presentation on number 9, so
I will.
maybe he will let us all know.
Can someone also refresh my memory? Did we discuss this at the Hauk Road, the new park? I can't remember exactly, but
Yep, we looked at that as an athletic field, and the current agricultural field's in the back right now. So yeah, we did look at it there. It's just it's almost the size of 2 soccer fields. So we're looking at some options. There's a development on the south side that has a potential where they're putting in 2 soccer fields as part of an HOA park, and that's a potential area. But yeah, it's a big area, and we look at it more as a multi-use field where we do soccer and cricket in the same.
So what kind of budget is required for cricket? I don't know enough about cricket. I know there's one stick.
The biggest thing is the pitch in the middle, right?
Right. So to add to that, right now all the cricket fields are shared between either lacrosse or soccer. So we have a pitch that has to be a permanent fixture. It's a concrete pitch, 22-yard concrete pitch, but soccer can play and lacrosse people can walk on it, run on it. I mean, you don't fall. So it can be shareable per se. I mean, we have a boundary when we are playing. Anybody outside that boundary of 70 yards can play their games. The game won't affect them or stop them from playing their game. So right now in Hilliard, which we are using as a temporary home ground, anywhere outside the boundary, people can play lacrosse, and starting this year, they're actually giving it to rugby as well. So the people are playing rugby on the side, but we can carry on with your game. So it's definitely shareable.
Does it have to be a concrete pitch?
For our weather, yes.
Okay, I didn't know whether like an artificial turf type thing would work there.
No.
That was
So-
blended with the grass.
No.
Okay.
So things like Texas and all, it's okay because it's always sunny weather. But for us, it will sink. When that's why you need like a concrete base. On top of we put AstroTurf and then mat.
Oh, so the concrete. Oh, I misunderstood. I thought there was a piece of concrete.
No. It's
I was hoping they wouldn't fall on the
No,
concrete.
it's like a
Fall on the concrete.
concrete base, AstroTurf
Oh.
layer, and a mat. So it will blend in. I can show the pictures later, but it
I'm
will
with you
blend in
now.
into the grass.
One of the concepts we look at is that concrete pitch is in between 2 fields. So then it's completely out of the bounds of like the soccer or lacrosse
Right.
fields, and then you can still have the pitch in the middle.
How many years has your organization been around?
So it's been 4 years. It's in the same, let's call it like Delaware Cricket Club. But we have been playing cricket. I was part of other cities. I mean, I moved 4 years ago to Delaware. So cricket itself has been in Columbus for 20 years, and there were like 2 teams, and now we have 50 teams, 50. So it's been growing, and there is a tremendous support from other cities. Like Dublin has 2 fields right now, and Columbus have 3, and Hilliard has 1. So, so on the same grounds, I was hoping, I mean, we should have at least one field, you know, to support our citizens who is playing, who can enjoy that game here. So, I mean, so far, I really appreciate all the city parks. You know, they have been giving us a tremendous support. There is no deny about it. But it's just that it's right now at a stage where we've been waiting for like few years now, and we don't know how long the wait's gonna be. But we would want to move it, you know, want that thing to move a little faster. So that's all it is.
Well, hopefully we'll hear from Mr. Miller later. And
Yeah, and one of the areas that we talked about by the YMCA, that road is going in, so we'll have access to that backfield soon, probably this year, I think. So that'll open up some opportunities
The
there.
Willowbrook Park.
Yes.
Okay, that's what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Where do you live, sir?
I'm off of Cheshire, Bromiller.
Okay. Yeah, that would be, is that you, Jim?
Jim.
okay, we'll see what we can do for you. They asked for pickleball and we got that, so we'll start on cricket now.
I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to come forward at this time? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to committee reports. Mr. Jones?
I do.
Wow.
I know.
Excited.
We just have this scheduled for a Public Works meeting on May 7th at 6 p.m. right here. So
Okay.
we are on the agenda. We're on the board. How's that?
On the board. Okay.
Yep.
very
Good.
Thank you. Mrs. Keller?
Nothing.
Mr. Browning?
Nothing.
Mr. Rohr?
Nothing, ma'am.
Mr. Hollinger?
Nothing. Nothing, thank you.
And I had one committee, but I was gone, so I missed it. And it was Sister City. So I can get a why don't you give me a report from Sister City?
Sure.
Sure.
We are continuing to work on the art exchange from Sakata with the students at the various schools through Delaware City. The schools should be wrapping up their art projects sometime in the beginning of May and start providing it to us, their final versions. And we'll send that over in August. It's when I was focused on the most.
Okay.
Baumholder, the soccer team will be visiting from Ohio Wesleyan, so they have a visit coming up fairly shortly, so that's exciting for them.
Wait, our students are going there or they're coming here?
Our Ohio Wesleyan students will be going to visit
Okay.
Baumholder. And Rand Giebert, the chairman of Sister City, he will be, he is going to be visiting Baumholder in June, and he's going to be working with the base there to see if they can do an exchange for the ROTC program of Delaware County and have the students in there come over for a visit. Even though that's Air Force and their Army, they want to still have that experience exchange. So.
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea.
Mhm.
I did visit JASCO one night last week, which is the Japanese American organization, their annual meeting. So I was able to go to that, and there was 120 RSVP, so it was really well attended. Okay, let's move on to presentations. First, we're going to have our annual Shade Tree Commission report. Who's giving it tonight? I do, please.
My name is Dave Carey. I live at 251 Crystal Petal Drive in Delaware.
Thank you.
All right, and I am here representing the Shade Tree Commission. I am not chairperson or co-chairperson or anything like that. Evidently, I missed a meeting and now I'm it.
Funny how that works.
But I've been on the commission for a long time and I enjoy it. It's not something I set out to do as a young person, but I have grown to really appreciate trees and urban forestry, and I appreciate the support that the city of Delaware gives to our urban forest. Not the least of which is having a city arborist, Doug Richmond, who a position like that in a city of this size I think is a really good idea. And he provides a lot of expertise as well and helps us out and helps keep our meetings really short. So we're thankful to Doug for that. We have been a tree city for 38 years consecutively, and that's a really cool thing. Part of that involves city ordinances and spending a certain amount of money per capita and having a commission. So So that's our part. And the other thing I would like to point out is that we have been planting a lot of trees as far as street trees as we're planting houses, we're planting trees as well. So in 2012, we had 12,000 street trees, and now we have something close to 18,000, I should say. 12 to 18,000, yep. And they are quite a valuable asset to the city, and they give our residents $193,000 a year off of their heat and gas bills, just by the shading effects and reducing heat island effects in the city. So we get back more than we pay for them. It's sort of the punchline there. We are all caught up on street tree plantings from Emerald Ash Borer, which hit us several years ago. So happy about that. And so now we're shifting on to pruning and efforts, because we're planting trees and they're small and they need attention when they're young. So that's what Doug's been focusing on mostly, and we're happy to have him doing that. We have recently completed a tree canopy project, a tree canopy assessment for the city. It's a computerized assessment, relies on satellite photos, and you just sit and look at little spots on a map and figure out what's under those spots. And it's relatively easy to do, and it's giving us an assessment of something like 24% of our area of our city is canopy covered, which is, I don't know, on maybe the medium to low side. For other cities, Cincinnati is something like 40%. Columbus is something around the mid-20s% as well. So maybe for the area, that's about where we're at. So we have room to improve. But if you look at the full report, we also have a lot of agricultural land, and you're not going to have trees in the middle of agricultural fields. So there's a lot to look at there. So the full report has yet to be parsed out by the commission yet. So right now we're just saying 24% canopy cover is sort of the benchmark for the city. And I think with that, I will answer any questions you might have.
I know how important street trees are, and they make our city look beautiful. This week, in fact, they are really trimming a lot of the trees. I live in the northwest section.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our beautiful trees are now becoming V's because of the wires that go through it.
Mm-hmm.
Have we ever thought, as we need to replace those in the older section where our wires are still overhead, of putting trees in that don't grow so fast? Or just a different type of tree, so we don't have to destroy all these beautiful trees? And I understand why, but I just, it's ugly.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, that's part of our mission too, is to recommend, and sort of there's a mantra, right tree for the right space,
Mhm.
right? So we do recommend either shorter or slower growing trees under those wires. I think historically, a lot of times what happens is either you plant, a lot of these trees were planted many, many years ago. And I know there were certain instances that I'm aware of where wires were put in after the trees were planted, plans change. We think there aren't going to be overhead wires, and then trees get planted. And then, okay, well, now the wires are coming. And so then you have to deal with that situation. But absolutely, if the wires are there and we have to replace or take down trees, yeah, we put something back that is smaller in stature or much slower growing. We have some options.
No, I particularly are. They had to take down a huge tree, so I got 3 street trees probably 8 years ago, and they cut every one of them on Friday.
Okay.
Every one of them. So they're
Sure.
growing fast, and they were just sticks when they put them in.
Okay.
So
Well,
I'd just love to see something a little. In the northwest neighborhood, I don't think we're ever going to have anything but overhead wires. I can't imagine us ever burying any of
Right.
those. So
Right.
just that particular neighborhood.
okay.
Just something to think about.
Absolutely, it's something to think about. I think that when it comes time to replacing trees that were not part of a new development,
Mhm.
we don't necessarily look at those on a case-by-case basis. We defer to city staff, and we can certainly look at those more closely. I think we approve them in general, but maybe we can look a little more closely at the placement of those, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your report. We as a city are going to plant a tree on Friday at 10 o'clock at Hayes High School, and I'll be reading a proclamation on that day for that. So everyone is invited to that.
Great.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your service in helping us.
Okay.
And item B on our presentations will be from the Delaware General Health District update. by Sheila Hiddleston. She's our health commissioner. And you brought some help tonight. Hi, Travis. How are you?
Sheila Hiddleston, your health commissioner, representing the health district. Although I am a Delaware City citizen, I live on William Street. The health district is at 1 through 5 West Winter. Thank you, Mayor and Council and staff and guests for allowing us to give a little update. I believe you all know Travis Urban. He's one of our program managers and in charge of our communicable disease and response team. And we've got a couple of outbreaks going on in Ohio and across the country. So he's going to tell you a little bit about those first. Hepatitis A and the measles.
Yeah, so hepatitis A has been going around since early 2018. Ohio is a little bit over 2,000 cases. Here locally, we are about 10, and I know 10 doesn't sound like a whole lot, but our baseline is 0 to 1. So, we're definitely seeing an increase in hepatitis A cases. In response to that, we're going out to the jail, vaccinating staff and inmates, reaching out to our partners, our high-risk population. So the high-risk population is our IV drug users and our homeless. So we're going out to Maryhaven, not only for our routine HIV screening, but also hepatitis A vaccines. We have walk-in clinics every Friday 1 to 4, so we reach out monthly to our partners such as United Way, Maryhaven, Red Cross, Grace Clinic, a couple different partners who try and get people to come in, and get vaccinated. It's a 2-dose series for the vaccine, but even if you get 1 dose, it's about 95% effective. So even if we get you once, that's pretty good protection against that. And measles has been going on, not in Ohio, thankfully, but it has been going on. I know New York has a big outbreak going on. I believe Michigan might have something going on as well. West Coast has something going on. We actually had a fake measles scare here on St. Patty's Day weekend, where we had a traveler coming back from Uganda, saw a physician at the VA. They made a measles diagnosis after 8 to 10 hours of work on it, and there not being a case. So we were happy for that, but we do jump on measles very quickly, even if it is a holiday weekend. We had staff work on that until Saturday and Sunday.
Thank you. So
Thank
for
you.
hepatitis A, if your EMS, your fire, or your police department would like us to come and do vaccinations for them. So most of you have probably never had the hepatitis A vaccine. Even when I came into public health about 20 years ago, the only place we gave hepatitis A vaccine was in the southwest section of the country. So it's relatively new. But we are offering that, and our nurses will come to you and give those shots for you if you'd like us to do that. And then, just like we do with flu vaccine and things, we would just charge insurance. So if there's something that you all would like, just let us know. As far as the measles, of course, that is a vaccine preventable disease, and we are working with all of our state and local partners, particularly at the legislative level, to look at maybe increasing the mandates for vaccines. We're working, my association, the Association of Ohio Health Commissioners, is working with the Ohio chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, because our rules related to vaccines in Ohio are very, very, very lax for the country. And like Travis said, we haven't been seeing an increase, but it really truly is just a matter of time. And about 4 years ago, we had a fairly significant mumps outbreak, and all of those are vaccine preventable. So just so you all know. A couple of other things. I wanted to say a big thank you to Tom and to Sean. Jackie, I know, was at our DAC meeting, and we appreciated her coming. We did give an update that we have way outgrown the properties that we have there on Winter Street, and in response to trying to grow to take care of the needs of the community. So we are going to be building a building, and we're very appreciative, especially me as a health commissioner. I always say I think I'm a pretty good health commissioner, but I don't really know anything about building buildings other than a personal property. So Sean and Tom have both been very, very helpful to us to do that. We have an age-friendly.
Are you at liberty to say where it is yet?
Yes. Well,
I mean, I know where it is, but
contract. It isn't. We
okay,
haven't
then don't
closed
say
yet.
that.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
It's a public record. We are trying to purchase the property down on South Sandusky, next to Country Club. That used to be the Leroy Jenkins property, is how a lot of people know that. It's a 9-acre parcel of property. Our plan is to build a 30,000 square foot building with an additional 10,000 that could be added on later as we continue to grow. And 200 spaces for parking. That's what we're so excited about. We actually, during the winter vortex, I had to cancel clinics because we have young moms who come with a lot of little babies and children, and I was real worried about them traveling through the cold weather for a couple of blocks. So we're very excited about that.
Well, thank you for wanting to stay in Delaware City too.
We do.
I'm
Our
really,
board
really
was very
thrilled.
committed that we would like to stay within the city. If we couldn't stay in the city, at least to stay in the general vicinity, but we were really pleased with that property. And hopefully it'll all go well, and we'll close in a couple of weeks and then get started.
Okay.
We are working with SourcePoint on an age-friendly survey. The results are finished, and we'll be doing a data release on May the 8th, and all of you are certainly welcome to come. It will be at SourcePoint from 9 to 10:30, so if you'd like to come and hear, that is a designation that AARP does for communities to help people that are seniors to know that this is a good place for them to live and kind of what those resources are. We did just finish our last community health improvement plan. Our new one started in January of this year. We have several priorities, and I believe Travis already gave you the toolkits?
Yes, I gave it to Tom.
Okay, so the toolkits are out, but we do have a nice little 4-page summary, and I'm going to send all of these things electronically to you tomorrow, but a nice little summary of all the last 5 years, what we worked on with the Community Health Improvement Plan. Again, thank you to Ms. Walker for coming to the District Advisory Council meeting. We did roll out that we are working on, as part of Travis's team, community profiles. So in the next couple of months, you will receive a profile for Delaware City that talks a little bit about some of your demographic information, obviously things like age, poverty. It's going to talk a little bit about your health risks, the top diseases that we see as far as causes of death in your community. So you'll be getting all of that. And then one of the things that we talked to our board about when we actually added a second epidemiologist was, if our political partners have data that you really need somebody to look at, we are happy to look at that for you. But when you receive that community health profile, if there are things that you need for a grant that are maybe not included in that, but you'd like some more additional information, our epidemiologists are happy to look at that for you. And then lastly, the overdose report for 2018 is finished. We thought we were gonna be a little bit less than 2017, and we ended up right at the same. So we had 27 drug overdose deaths last year, which is not good, but I mean, at least it didn't grow, I suppose, but it isn't good. What we are working on, if you're familiar with the state budget bill, there is a provision within that to do a overdose fatality review team, similar to what we already do with child fatality. And we're already doing that in our community. One of Travis's staff, Dr. Heather Lane, is working very closely with the coroner's office, and we're looking at all of those overdose deaths, trying to look at what are any of those factors that are leading up to that, to see if we can kind of get ahead of some of that, aside from what we're already doing with Mary Haven and some of our other mental health, some of our other community partners. So those are the things I wanted to give an update on. Does the council have any questions or anything that you all are working on that we can work on with you?
I have one question for Travis.
Yes.
And seeing on the news the other day about the measles outbreak, and they said if you had gotten your shot at a certain 58, 57, that you should have a second one. Do you know what that number is, and is that true?
We recommend 2 doses of vaccine for everybody for MMR.
Yeah, but it was that certain time period because they didn't think it was going to be strong enough or something.
So if you were born after 1957, you should confirm with your doctor that you at least had 1 dose. If you would be friends or have family members that are maybe immunocompromised in any way, you may want to go ahead and get that second dose. It isn't going to hurt you in any way. I'm trying to think of the year we started giving 2 doses. We used to give a dose, well, we still give a dose at birth, and now we give 1 before you enter kindergarten. Used to be, it was at 1 year and then before you went into the 7th grade, and that started probably in the mid-90s. So before that, you probably got 2 doses, but you may not have gotten 2.
All right. I had somebody ask me, and I'm like, I have no clue. So
And
thank you very much.
One of the things I'm going to give you is a little fact sheet about the measles.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much for the update.
And then thank you very much for the work. I know you've got it later on the agenda, the things you're doing with the parks. We appreciate that.
Okay. Now we'll have a staff update and presentation by Ted Miller, the Director of Parks and Natural Resources.
Madam Mayor and Council. So here's my presentation. A few items got teed up earlier tonight, so we'll dive into those and talk about those. As we get started here, one of the things I want to introduce right off the bat is two of our new permanent part-time positions. Some of you may know a lot of these people, Dick Sanfilippo and Chris Nelson. They've recently come on and they've been great. They've been helping out so much. They're able to do everything, and it's been a huge for our department because they've just been able to fill in and short-staffed a little bit. They've helped a ton. So looking forward to continue working with them and moving forward. So our department is made up of basically 4 divisions. We have the Parks, Urban Forestry, Oak Grove Cemetery, Hidden Valley Golf Course. Those are the people that work in our departments, and they're just tremendous. We move people around, and we're able to fill in where needed, and that's what makes that staff truly unique. So I wanted to go over some of the initiatives that we're looking at, and is particularly right now just looking in parks here. The Wetland Park is looking at getting this concept moving forward. We have city property out there now, with Cactus Hollow. What we were looking at doing is adding about 33 acres to the existing park. That would also almost double the mile of trails out there. It'd give us almost 1.3 miles of trails. And some of the things we would like to see out there is potentially a cross-country course, also possibly frisbee golf, and then opening up some areas for fishing, but then also in the long-term future, some shelters and some restroom areas will be needed. Some of the restrooms around the dog park and possibly in the back by Cactus Hollow. The trail would be just a continuation of the gravel trail we have out there now is what we're envisioning, and just kind of an extension of that to open up the park. It's already there, and allowing the public to enjoy it more. We also have some prairie areas kind of in the Brown area that would add about 3.5 acres of prairie pollinator gardens, which would be another nice attraction out there. And again, it's mainly more of a passive park that could be a great attraction to the city, especially on the east side. And then you've seen some plans, some of the greenways we're looking at trying to get it connected to the downtown core. The Ross Street Park is another area we're going to be moving forward with. Carrie Joy presented at the last city council meeting kind of some of the things they would like to move forward with. And so we've done some surveys out there. We want to continue to engage the public a little bit more to find out some of the things they want in this park. But what we're hearing is the festival field. They really want that festival field, community field, where they can have the small gatherings. The basketball courts is not an option. That was really kind of shot down in most of the surveys, and we'll continue to probe that, but I don't see that as something that we're looking at out there. There's a playground across the street, but we also looked at possibly a different type of playground, more an adventure playground, where it kind of fit in with what SWCI is doing a little bit more with the creative side, so we may explore that a little bit more. But the community events and kind of setting that park up for more of those types of passive recreation is what we're looking at there at the Ross Street Park.
Ted, can I ask you a question
Yes.
about that? There was once talk of adding a small water feature there. Are
Yes.
we moving forward with that idea?
We're going to explore that a little bit more. I wouldn't envision it nearly the size of the spray and play, but a small
Right.
feature that I think they would. We're gonna when we engage the public, we want to ask that question a little bit more and see if that's something they really want out there.
Okay.
So yeah.
I'd love to be a part of that project.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. We're gonna get some concepts together and then also have a meeting out at SWCI and bring the public in and find out what they like and don't like.
Perfect. Thank you.
Another topic we're going to move forward with is the sign package. We want to look at doing some new signs throughout some of the parks. Some of the main parks is Mingo Park and Veterans Park and Hidden Valley Golf Course, doing an entrance sign there. We have the Bennett Park, formerly East Side Park. That's included in the package, along with the spray and play in front of the spray and play itself. We have no sign there now. We want to recognize that as a city park and clearly delineate that. Oak Grove Cemetery is also on there, along with some kiosks that we can get some information to the public at Mingo, Oak Grove, and Veterans Park. And these are all part of our wayfinding sign package that's been very useful. You know, we have this consistent look and just plugging them in. Where in Mingo, we also are looking at a vehicular sign and then some field ID signs for like the baseball field at Bennett. So another initiative we heard from the public, especially in our bikeway plan, was connectivity. That people wanted more connectivity. We're hearing it in rumblings in the comprehensive plan. And so one of the ways we looked at, you know, in promoting this connectivity was some greenways through Delaware. And it really, some community members have really pushed this forward. I'm just kind of facilitating a little bit, but the community has really come forward and really wants to see this. So what we've done is organized a group of citizens, and we represent across the city. That was one of our goals. We wanted a representation across, more like a city council, so that we're getting input from every part of the city. And again, connectivity. So we looked at the connectivity, and one of the things, common themes, was connect to downtown. So we wanted these greenways to look at connecting to the downtown area, connecting to schools, connecting to parks. Those are important areas, and the destination points along there. So that has kind of moved forward, and what this group really wanted to focus on was the Delaware Run area. And just last Saturday, we took a walk out there and walked areas, the golf course and Blue Limestone Park, and there's some just truly great places right in the middle of the city that can be utilized. So we're going to try to move forward with that, working with the hospital and CSX Railroad. So I expect a lot of great things out of this committee because they're very motivated and it's exciting. South Community Park, we've talked about this, but this is an area where we see a need. I had to hurry up and put in cricket fields earlier when we were there, but no, that was actually in there. And we've recognized that the southern portion of the area, those red areas, are some areas where we don't have access to a community park. It's still growing, and as that area develops more and more houses go in, we understand the need for that. And so we went through and did some inventory in the last few years, and some of the needs we do need are some greenways. That was from the recreation, the park side of it, some greenways. From the amenity side of it, we need some shelters, and I say plural because we're probably short a couple shelters. And the shelters, they're very busy. They're rented out consistently through the summer. Softball field youth, that's a growing area because that whole face of that sport is changing. We're seeing more travel teams, and they want practice time, but we're coming out with an athletic field policy where we're really going to turn to our mission, where we're focusing on inclusive sports. And then after that, there'll be the next tier where we'll look at trying to facilitate some of these travel teams that are really pressured us with the system, the park system now. The cricket fields, and again, I say fields there because I think, as we move forward, there's going to be a need for more than one. So again, I don't think we can dedicate an entire cricket field for sole cricket use, but lacrosse, soccer, they can all be multi-use fields and share those. And I think that's definitely something we need to get going on. Multi-use trails, it's always a need, and then I think additional spray park. So we talked about the Ross Street Park as a potential area. So switching over to urban forestry, again, I was mentioned earlier tonight, we were Tree City USA 38 years. I think there's like maybe 3 cities that are older than us when it comes to that, so that's something to really be proud of. And we're moving forward with a urban forestry management plan because we are getting more and more trees, and we have to take care of these trees. We've got an arborist now, but we really want to get a plan into the future so that we can figure out a way that we can take care of these trees and keep our urban forestry in healthy condition. So this management plan, working with the Shade Tree Commission on this, We're trying to get that this year's, we want that to come out this year and lay out the plan on how we move forward with our urban forest. The cemetery master plan, you're going to be getting a presentation on that soon. We're closing in on that master plan, and there are some really great things are going to come out of this. And I think that cemetery is going to really see some huge improvements, and it's going to become a great asset to the city again. So that is something that we're definitely moving forward with, and it's pretty exciting right now. We're kind of getting into some of the final plan. The golf course. So with the golf course, we a few years back, you may remember, we did a plan for the strategic plan for sustainability, trying to figure out some of the things that we can do to make the golf course more successful. And we kind of it was a citizen-led group again, and they pinpointed two areas: marketing and operations. So in the marketing side, we wanted to really make a push on the social media side of it, which we've done more of, getting word out there on that, and then getting on the Google, and we're getting Google surveys, and we've been getting a lot of very positive value out of the golf course from that survey. We've been wanting to promote more leagues, and particularly the Little Brown Jug, which thanks to the whole tournament's been revamped, and it's definitely growing, and it's a great thing now. Looking at some other golf's changing. Even though Tiger won, golf's really changing, and we need to evolve with that a little bit more. And some of the things we're looking at is like a fling stick. It's a combination of lacrosse and golf. You use the same ball and everything. You just take a lacrosse stick. It's not really a lacrosse stick. It's kind of built for a golf ball. And you putt with that. So maybe introducing some of those. They're pretty inexpensive to introduce it and see if it takes hold. But trying those things to try to get more response from the community. Engage the community a little bit more, and that's where we want to try to market to millennials a little bit more, and the seniors. But the other thing we want to do is engage the community is make the golf course accessible to the non-golfers as maybe part of a greenway on the Delaware Run. And that photo in the middle, I don't think we do something like that, but just having a trail through there where it's screened from golf balls hitting you or something like that, so that the public can make their way and experience the golf course. So the other item we brought up in the plan was to operations. We wanted to look at the course rates, make sure they're competitive. We've done some course updates on the rates. We're still competitive. We're still lower than most of the community, and that's the way we want to keep it because we just want to keep that value aspect of it. We are introducing alcohol this year. That permit did go through, so we're getting that set up. And that's not going to be the save-all for the golf course, but it's going to add to it, and I think it'll be a good addition. And staffing options, we're looking at that staff position out there, kind of bringing it into parks a little bit more, so that it's not just a standalone golf course. We're using the staff that's at the golf course in the parks and vice versa. And then one of the things we really need to move forward is the equipment replacement plan, trying to get on the schedule where we can keep we don't that our equipment evolves and we get good equipment out there that we can stay efficient and and keep the equipment updated. So one of the things we'll probably do is reconvene this committee and just kind of maybe update the plan a little bit and see what we can do moving forward, because we have accomplished quite a few of the goals laid out in the plan. So I've been rambling, so I wanted to leave some time for some questions and comments. So if you have any comments I can or questions I can answer.
No questions? I had one, and I lost it. It's not funny, it's old. I'll have to email you later because I don't remember what it was. Oh, I know, I had one. How many, so I'm sure, I'm not a golfer. How many teams have signed up ready to golf as far as adults versus children? Can you have that?
The youth, we track the numbers, and we do have more youth golfers. What has hurt us the most in last year, in 2018, we had 30 less days than we did the year before, just as golfing. But we've tracked the youth numbers, and we do have an increase in youth out there. And we've intentionally kept the youth prices lower. I think it's $5 for the youth to golf around 9. So, and that's one of the things we wanted to keep was the value in that youth.
Maybe you could do night golf too, you know, the glow-in-the-dark golf balls and then use
Yeah.
those rings for the,
Yep, I think that's been done in the past.
Tears up a course.
Yeah, because
you do it at the end of the season. Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank
Great
you.
presentation. Okay, we'll move on to item 10, which is consideration of a transfer of liquor permits. Yelena, if you'll read A in there, and Chief, if you want to come forward.
Item A, transfer from Sheila McKee Fisher, doing business as Kint's Bar and Grill and Patios at 77 Lake Street, first floor, Delaware, Ohio 43015, to Invest in Homes LLC and Patios, 77 Lake Street, first floor, Delaware, Ohio 43015, permit class D2, D2X, and D3.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of council, this is a transfer of the liquor licenses that are currently at Kinz's to a new business that will continue to operate at the same building at 77 Lake Street. That will be a restaurant that is going to be owned by the Rockwell Company, who you have previously heard from, investing in the food truck court. No issues with the applicant, no issues with the location, recommend approval.
Any questions or motions?
Move for approval without a hearing or whatever.
Without hearing, okay.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mr. Jones. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes. And item B,
Transfer from Delaware Market LLC, doing business as Delaware Market at 17 East William Street, Delaware, Ohio 43015, to Ami Petroleum LLC, doing business as Ami Petroleum at 17 East William Street, Delaware, Ohio 43015, permit class C1 and C2.
thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of council, this is a transfer of the existing liquor licenses at the BP gas station right across the street. It is new ownership, transfer from old ownership to new ownership. No issues with the new ownership, no issues with the location. Recommend approval.
Move for approval without objection.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mr. Jones. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes, thank you. And item 11 is consideration of a new liquor permit. Item A,
Item A is AVI Food Systems, Inc., doing business as Hamilton William Campus Center at 40 Roland Avenue, Delaware, Ohio 43015, permit class D5I.
Madam Mayor, members of council, this is a new liquor permit for Hamilton Williams Campus Center and Campus. This is a new food service company that came in about a year ago. The old liquor license left with the old company. This is basically the same thing for the same use at the same location. No issues with the location, no issues with the vendor. Recommend approval.
Chief, what's a D5I?
That is spirituous liquor on and off premise.
I'll move for approval without objection.
Second.
motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mr. Jones. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
I'll also clarify, just now that I read my chicken scratch, it's also beer, wine, and mixed beverages as well.
Okay. And then item B,
Item B, Weedtran, 820 Sunbury Road, number 604, Delaware, Ohio 43015, permit class D2.
Madam Mayor, members of council, this is an additional liquor permit for the Perfect 10 Nails and Spa at 820 Sunbury Road. You previously heard a liquor background for their D3 application in February. Continues to be no issue with the applicant, no issue with the location. Recommend approval.
Move for approval without objection.
Second.
motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mr. Jones. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lot of work. Item 12 is the fifth reading of ordinance number 1907. Elaine, if you'll please read this into the record.
Ordinance number 19-07, an ordinance amending chapter 1121 and 1143 of the Planning and Zoning Code of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Delaware.
Mr. Shulman.
Madam Mayor, members of council, I apologize for not being here for the past few meetings, but it is my understanding at the last meeting, there were some comments that Councilman Schaefer has a colleague who he recommended we speak to get more information about this issue. We did schedule that meeting, I believe it's May 1st, next week. So we don't have anything new to provide you today. So my recommendation would be to take this to another reading so we can get that information and perhaps come back with either just information or suggested amendments to that draft.
Thank you, and don't apologize for having a baby either. So this will go on to the May 13th meeting, and congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to, did anybody want to discuss any more on that one? I mean, think we're good? Okay. Item 13 is the fourth reading of ordinance number 19-08 as amended.
Ordinance number 19-08, an ordinance prohibiting smoking in city parks.
Should have just stayed up here.
So based on our last discussion on April 8th, where the modified ordinances comes back with proposing a ban on smoking in city parks, a complete ban. That includes e-cigarettes and just smoking in general. Does not include the smokeless tobacco, but also exempts the golf course in this. So based on our discussion on an April 8th meeting.
Discussion, thoughts?
I think we're awesome for being able to change our minds on the go when we hear from residents. I think a lot of people come and say that it doesn't make a difference if I come and speak because no one listens to me. And I think that this issue in particular is evidence that we do listen and that we are willing to change our minds. Even when we think our minds are made up about something, we hear new information and we say, I'm looking at it differently now. So I'm in favor of the changes. I read over the ordinance and I think it reflects exactly what we discussed in the last meeting. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or motion?
I move for approval of ordinance 19-08 as amended.
Second.
No, y'all can't second it. Who said second? Okay. Motion by Mrs. Keller, second by Mr. Hellinger.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
No.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes. Motion carries. Item 14 is the second reading of ordinance number 19-13.
Real quick, Jen, when will that go into effect?
We didn't do an emergency clause, so it'd take effect 30 days after we pass it. And probably would want to do some posting and education before then, just so people know. But as we discussed before I left, this isn't a situation where policemen are going to walk around hitting people with citations for smoking in the parks anyway, but it would be helpful to let people know in advance.
Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to item 14.
Ordinance number 19-13, an ordinance for Manos Properties for approval, or for approving a final development plan for the Wesleyan Inn at 235 West William Street on approximately 0.72 acres in Zone POI, Planned Office Institutional District.
Thank you. Mr. Eflin?
Madam Mayor, members of council, your planning commission does recommend approval, as do we as staff. I understand this was presented at your last meeting. The Board of Zoning Appeals did grant the parking setback on both the east and west property lines as well, so we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. This is for a final development plan, which is technically an administrative act.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Eflin?
I have a couple for the developer.
Would you like to come forward, please? And then you know the routine, your name and address for the record, please.
Jim Manos, 5973 McEwen Court, Dublin, Ohio.
Thank you.
I'm Jeffrey L. Brown, attorney with the firm of Smith & Hale, 37 West Broad Street, Columbus, 43215.
Thank you.
Mr. Manos, I don't see any of the citizens that I met with last week in regards to this proposal. I'm their ward representative. And I promised them that I would bring forward just 2 requests that they have regarding the plan. One of them was regarding the buffering in the lot next to the subject property. Are you willing to beef up the buffering just a little bit for them? I know that there's already a pretty robust buffer, but they're concerned about the potential for headlights and other sort of things like that. And so they were requesting just even more robust landscaping. And then the next thing was just regarding the lighting. We had questions about how much of that lighting will bleed over, and if the lighting is dark skies compliant.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Actually, I think that it's, the lighting is only 4 feet high, only.
Okay.
It's like,
So,
that's it.
okay, that will make them happy as well to know that. So,
No, I will absolutely, put the biggest trees I can find.
okay.
Dave, can you pull up the landscaping on that?
Additionally, Ms. Keller, the lights have to be shielded and cut off, although at 5 feet, it's not gonna make a lot of difference. Obviously, there could be room lights coming from there, but in terms of site lighting and building lighting, that would be contained to the site.
There actually is a, I don't know if you can see it, but where you walk onto the park or the empty lot, if you will, there's actually a couple steps there in the center. If you can point to it, Dave, but that, the elevation will be lower where the pavement is as well, which I don't think has ever been brought up, but there's a few steps in there.
Oh, and there's also a fence on the west property line. too.
Yes.
6 foot.
So the residents also had some questions about, would you ever host large events in that empty lot where you would have tents and music and things like that?
No. I don't think so. I mean, I think that we're gonna have an entertainment thing in the basement, or we're gonna have a basement with conference rooms, things of that nature. So I wouldn't assume that we would. No. In the lobby, we would, which is on the east side.
Okay. And do you have any further plans to purchase any more properties with the intent of developing them into something other than residential areas?
No, this is good enough for me.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm purchasing the house next to the one that I'm taking down after I get approval.
Okay.
Assuming I get approval.
It would just make them probably feel better to just have an idea of what your plans are with
Yeah.
that also.
Yeah.
That would.
No, I have no other plans to expand.
Okay. No other plans to ask for any zoning changes from residential to commercial?
Not that
I think we learned our lesson the first time around when we proposed to do that. So
Okay.
we understand the concerns of council and the neighbors.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
So the other house that you purchased, I mean, you're just gonna keep that for a rental, you're not planning on taking that one down too, is that correct?
No, it's pretty nice, that one.
That's what I
is.
thought.
But actually the barn, there's a barn that's very large, I'm sure you saw it, which, you know, I wanna keep for potential storage. There's not a lot of storage,
Right.
obviously. You know, like TVs and all kinds of stuff. So, I have no
Okay.
storage, or very little.
Just out of curiosity, what was their objections to parking lot tents and stuff?
They were just worried that if there were loud festivals and things like that, that maybe would go into the night, that it could disrupt the community feel of the neighborhood.
Because I would assume there would be, based on like homecoming, you know, events and things like that.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Well, there's a noise ordinance, so after a certain time it couldn't be there, but if you had, 6 or 8 people that wanted to get rooms there and sit outside and have a tent, I wouldn't think that would be a problem, but we do have a noise ordinance here in our city.
Elaine, do you remember anything else about concerns that maybe I didn't?
I didn't bring the list that I made, so I apologize, but I think their biggest concern were the headlights from the change in the direction, which with the buffering, and that was, I think you covered most of their main concerns.
I feel very strong that they'll be happy in the near future. And I think it'll be if you were there, but it's pretty rough. And I think it'll be a nice addition to the neighborhood.
Okay.
Councilwoman Keller, I do apologize. They did have a concern about some of the rubbish on the
Yes.
side of the house, which you're right about.
Yeah, we
You
had
took
that.
care of that.
Yeah, that was not, it just showed up. I don't know where it came from.
Imagine that, the dorm's behind.
Yeah, that happens by the university, I
Yes.
think.
Yep, we did receive pictures that any mess there has been cleaned up.
Yeah.
So appreciate that, thank you.
I did not leave my bed out.
So your wife didn't kick you out?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, what is the wish of council on ordinance number 19-13?
I would request a third, just because it's been a controversial issue.
I just hate to drag this
Yeah,
out
I
2
don't
more
see
weeks.
any problem doing
Everything's
it.
been taken
We're not
care
gonna
of.
change our vote in 2 weeks, so I'm gonna move to suspend the rules on ordinance 19-13.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Schaefer, a second by Mr. Jones. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
No.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Move for approval of ordinance 19-13.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schaefer, second by Mr. Jones. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Good
very
luck,
much.
and we're anxious to see it. Item 15 is consideration of resolution number 19-21.
Resolution number 19-21, a resolution approving the 2019 Delaware County All Hazard Mitigation Plan as submitted by Delaware County.
Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. Today, we're bringing before you, since I've been here with the city, our third mitigation plan. It's one of the pillar plans that needs to be adopted by local jurisdictions. With us today is our Emergency Management Director, Sean Miller. I'd like just to highlight how fortunate we are to have our Emergency Management Director. He's involved all the communities here in Delaware County. He is a pillar not only here in our community but statewide, so we're very fortunate to have him. And it is a pleasure working with him. So with that, I'd like to just turn over the reins to him so he can present the mitigation plan.
Thanks, Chief. Sean Miller, 204 Rock Creek Drive, Delaware, here tonight to talk about the mitigation plan, as Chief said. This plan is not an operational plan per se. It is more of a roadmap, and it looks at what hazards are realistic to Delaware County and its jurisdictions, to include the city of Delaware. And so it identifies those hazards, gives them an analysis, a historical perspective, a context, and identifies what their impacts might be if they were to occur. And then it also lays out ways in which we can reduce or fully eliminate the hazards associated with those risks. So this time we updated our methodology a little bit, and tornado actually came out on top, not because of severe occurrences of tornadoes, but because of numerous lower end occurrences of tornadoes. So recently in 2016 we had one hit Delaware State Park. We also had one in 14, 13, and 10. So they've been fairly active as of late. Additionally, severe summer weather, severe winter weather, and terrorism are all in the top 10 as well. So those are some of the identified hazards. I believe our methodology for ranking is much clearer than in the old plan. Additionally, this process for the creation of the plan was very collaborative. Chief Donahue was involved very much in that plan, as were the other jurisdictions involved. Thus far, the commissioners Delaware County Board of Commissioners have adopted the plan on behalf of the unincorporated areas of the county. I was just in the city of Powell last week. I believe they had their first reading that evening. Galena has adopted it, as has, I think Sunbury has adopted it, or they're in their second or third reading, and Shawnee Hills had their first reading. So it's progressing in the other jurisdictions as well. But as I said, it's a high-level plan, it's a resource document, and this plan enables us to seek and apply for mitigation dollars, grant funds in the future. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
I am so glad to put a face with all my texts that I get from you, and thank you for those texts. I've always wondered who this guy was, so
Well,
thanks for coming tonight.
Absolutely. Chief and I joked numerous times. It seemed like over the winter there were really bad emails coming out about the weekend on a Thursday or Friday, so
Yes.
thankfully that has
Yes.
stopped.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
I'd just like to add one item. The city benefited from the mitigation plan, our first one that we did in 2006. As you may recall, when we built the YMCA, we received funding, federal funding for to make that a mass care facility. And with that, we received flooring for the gymnasium floor, that if there would be a need for mass housing, that facility could be utilized. So this is a very beneficial for the city, and it opens up opportunities for us as well.
Thank you. Any questions? Any motions?
Move for approval of Resolution 19-21.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Keller, second by Mr. Schaefer. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
And before you leave the podium, happy birthday, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your work, Sean. Item 16 is consideration of Resolution 19-22.
Resolution number 19-22, a resolution authorizing the city to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Ohio Health Corporation.
Mr. Homan.
Yeah, this is a resolution that would authorize execution of an agreement with Ohio Health in connection with a payment to the city of Delaware. This is something that we have been negotiating for the last few years in connection with the investment the city made in the southeast part of the city. And as council knows, we've been kind of going back and forth on this for a while now, and I'm pleased to report that we've reached an agreement on an upfront payment to the city, and then 7 consecutive payments after that for a total of $650,000. So I would ask for your consideration this evening or at the next meeting. But again, this is something that I started negotiating with Bruce Hagan, who preceded Steve Bunyard, who's the current Assistant Vice President at Grady.
And this is how much per?
It's $65,000 in each of, there's an upfront payment of $190,000, which represents 3 years, essentially kind of a, just because we've been at this for a number of
3 years.
years. The mayor and I were down there over a year ago, meeting with the executive team there at Ohio Health, and so there's an initial payment of $190,000, then
195, right?
195, yeah. And then 7 consecutive payments after that of $65,000. I will come back to you in terms of designating those dollars. I think they should help offset some of our investment down in that area, whether it's road maintenance, whether it's an infrastructure investment, but I'll come back with a recommendation on that.
So the total again totals up to what?
$650.
And that?
It really
That
represents.
is your agreement that puts us to rest?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't put the rest, our interest and in seeing the follow through on a full service medical facility down there. That was always really the long range objective, both for the hospital and for the city, hence our investment in the area. But we realize obviously the investment was made for other reasons as well. But when we set that up, they were not required to go into the new community authority, so we talked to them actually sent them a letter several years ago asking them about that, and this is the result of that, so.
So you're satisfied with? the-
Yeah, I think
with,
I think it's fair.
Return on investment for this, then?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we put a lot, we put millions of dollars of infrastructure down there, but that wasn't just, it didn't just turn on Ohio Health. But I think it helps, in my mind, to offset some of the commitment that we made, and had they been participating in some way in the new community authority, this would have kind of represented that kind of investment.
It was a long
So-
time getting here, so good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Make a motion for approval of resolution 1922.
Second. Motion by Mr. Jones, second by Mr. Browning. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes, motion carries. And how soon are they gonna write a check?
As soon as we get it signed.
Good, okay. Let's not dilly-dally. Okay, let's move on to item 17, which is consideration of ordinance number 19-18.
Ordinance number 19-18, an ordinance amending the management, professional, technical, confidential, and supervisory employee pay plan requesting a reclassification of the golf course superintendent at an M8 pay grade to a golf course supervisor at an M5 pay grade.
This is the Ted Show tonight, isn't it?
Madam Mayor, City Council. So what we're asking, and it kind of goes along with what we talked about in our budget session last fall, is taking this golf course position, and 3 months out of the year, they don't work at the golf course. They help the Parks Department with snow, and so taking that position and kind of moving it to the M5, which will put it a little bit more in line with our like where our arborist is, some of that other management, and therefore I think it helps out, allowing that time to be spent in the parks and also at the golf course. But their primary duties will be the golf course, but we would want to have them work in the parks also in the summertime too. If there's any questions, I can answer those.
Any questions? Do you guys want to take this to another reading, or do you want to?
Well, so
Go ahead.
I do think that at some future point, we should re-examine our guidelines, because until we have new guidelines, the guidelines we have are the ones that we are supposed to be using. And it says, adjusting city employee compensation should proceed to 3 readings. In this case, it's reducing
It's
employees.
reducing, I know. Right.
And so we don't really, I mean, I think if we're increasing employee
yes.
compensation, we should always take it to 3. So maybe that's one of the things we can take a note of, Elaine, that we could
Elaine.
maybe make that change when we do discuss it, because I think
Yeah, we do need to definitely take a look at those guidelines. and
take a look at the
adjust them,
guidelines.
So we can take it to another reading if you want, but the fact that we're reducing it, I think it's a good thing.
I make a motion to suspend the rules requiring 3
Right,
readings.
I think
on-
George was gonna say
Oh,
something.
Well, I was just gonna say, though, I mean, it isn't that we're just decreasing the pay, we're changing the duties.
Correct.
So it isn't like, oh, we're overpaying you, so we're going to decrease this. So I think there is more to it than just saying, well, this guy's gonna make less money, or this position, because it's a new position. It actually is a new position. We're replacing one position with another. Net gain, yes, it's less expenditure, but that just,
What would be the impact of taking this to 3 readings in terms of the hiring process? I'm assuming this would greatly delay it in its,
Well, they've posted it, I
So
think,
it-
just with the expectation that council would be acting on this at some point. It just gives us a leg up. I just think we obviously wouldn't execute the hiring
Yeah, that would
until the
clearly-
ordinance had been approved. I think that, so that,
so we'd have to do 3 readings, then wait 30 days if we didn't have an emergency clause.
and these are the cases
Season
where
be over.
it
Right.
makes sense to,
This is,
you know,
yeah, I'm comfortable
If you wanna
with
have
suspending the
some-
rules
yeah.
in this.
But I think maybe, Ted, if you could elaborate on the discussion we had with city council back during the budget discussion regarding this position, and it's not necessarily pigeonholed to the golf course.
Correct.
Even though that's the position, because the opportunity here is to capitalize on the person's experience in turf management
Right.
overall.
Yeah, one of the ways we're advertising the position is turf management and aquatic management. So we're gonna have them in the parks, utilizing those licenses for aquatic, so we don't have to use a consultant for that. We'll use this person. But also, they're not gonna be confined to the golf course, because there's a lot of duties at the golf course that, don't need to, we can utilize seasonal staff for. So we don't want this position to we wanna utilize their skills more broadly in the park district and not just the golf course. But like I said, also, I think we broke it down to almost like 40% of their time will probably be spent in the parks or snow plowing, and then 60% probably at the golf course as a general breakdown.
How many of your staff in your department are licensed to do the fertilization right now and to do the water?
We don't have anyone licensed to do the turf management, the application, so we're looking at using a consultant to do that initially. Yeah, and that's one of the things we want this position. Ideally, they would have that license coming in, but we would also want them to get it within a year.
Why don't we have more that are licensed? I know
Well,
Chris is
because
licensed.
there's through the agriculture department, there's several licenses, and they're very specific on what that license can do. We have application licenses, but not for like fertilization or I can't remember the names of. They're real specific on these names and what those licenses can do.
I've only been bringing this up for 10 years, that we need more than one person that's licensed. So
Well,
just in this particular case,
yeah.
here we are.
Yeah.
And I always got an excuse why they wouldn't get licensed. I just think it's crazy. If you're in that field, you should be licensed if that's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. And we'll likely look at getting more than one person. Turf management, it's never been an issue until now, but like we'll probably look at doing that.
But if that guy's on vacation, then you can't do what you need
Well, a
to
lot
do.
of times you can use that license under another person's. You can use another person's license under their supervision. But as a license holder, they're usually not as comfortable with that sometimes, because it's like, someone else is using your license
Yeah,
per se.
especially if
But-
you're on vacation, they're not using it under your
Well,
supervision.
yeah, you wouldn't be allowed in that situation, but,
Just saying, I've been at this for about 10 years. Complaining, so whatever. You guys want to make a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings in ordinance 1918.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jones, second by Mrs. Keller. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Make a motion for approval of ordinance 1918.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jones, second by Mrs. Keller. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schaefer?
Yes.
Mayor Riggle?
Yes.
Thank
Motion
you.
carries. Good luck in finding somebody. Item 18 is discussion of the Transparency Initiative. I'm going to start off with, when I first read this, I was a little taken back. Felt like I or we as council were being accused of doing something that I think most of us are pretty ethical in what we do. I appreciate, this is brought forward by George Hellinger. The first one, the executive session, I appreciate you bringing that to our attention again, that verbiage does need to be both written and spoken as we go into an executive session, and I think we did get maybe a little lackadaisical on that. So I appreciate it, and we will make sure that will happen from here on out. As far as the second item, and the duties of not voting, I think when we abstain, I know myself, if I was doing closing at my title company, I would say so and I would abstain. When I served on the Fair Board, I would abstain anytime it had reference to that. I know Chris Jones, I've seen him abstain back when he worked for Overfield. I think we do a pretty good job of abstaining when there is a conflict of interest. So I'm not real sure what that was all about there.
Well, that was, and let me interject. So, and again, qualifying the reason for the abstention. And that's really what it is. So in the case of, like when we did Speedway and Chris says, well, I'm going to abstain because Oberfields was a supplier of materials for that. So, and that's really what
a clarification as to why someone is abstaining.
And I think we do a really good job of that. And I think.
Make certain that we continue to do that.
And I think Robert's rules does say that if you want to ask another council member why you're abstaining, anybody has the right to do so.
I don't think we should have to ask, though.
No,
It
but
should-
I
it
don't
should
know
be
that it's time that we
disclosed up front.
haven't disclosed. That's
Yeah.
why I'm just a little confused.
Okay.
As far as the next one regarding the financial campaign contributions, that is all public record. There are rules that the Board of Election has put in place, and I think we all follow those rules. I mean, the only way you know or anybody else knows what we take in is because it's all a public record. And to ask us to not vote, or to say to the person that's in before us, you know, you gave me a check 6 years ago, I just have to disclose that. I think that's wrong. That's only not going to make that person feel uncomfortable that's sitting there talking to us. It's going to make us uncomfortable. And I don't think that that should be part of it. This should have nothing to do with running a city council meeting, in my opinion. And I'm just going to go through mine, and then anybody else can jump in. And then the last one, to say that you want all council members to disclose any meetings of an individual. If you saw my calendar, there's no way I could do that and work a full-time job. These are my constituents, and if they call and say, I want to meet with you, then I'm going to meet with them. And I don't care if it's in the grocery store, I don't care if it's out to eat dinner. I get stopped every day, everywhere I go. Do you have 5 minutes? Do you have 5 minutes? Can you meet with me for coffee? I don't have time to make a report of everybody that I meet with. So that's how I feel about this. I don't think this needs to be in a resolution because I don't think there's anything in here that we don't already do. So that's my opinion, and we can go through council and go from there. So whoever wants to go first, go.
Well, I guess I'll go next, because George and I met to talk about this a little bit, and I explained to him what you also said. It kind of came across as the fact that you think that we're not being ethical, and I would disagree with that premise, but I understand you have concerns to make sure that we're doing the right things and for the right reasons. So my concern, I share Carolyn's concern about these disclosure campaign contributions. We disclose our campaign contributions through the Board of Elections, and we also file with the Ethics Commission anytime there would be any gifts or anything of that nature. So we're basically doing what should be done. My concern with this is this starts from a premise that if people contribute to our campaigns, that we're somehow beholden to them. I don't think anybody writes a check to any of our campaign funds with the idea that we're going to do anything other than make good, informed decisions. And I think that's what they're looking for. Maybe there are people out there who at $500 or $1,000 would cause them not to vote their conscience, but I'm not one of those, and I don't think anybody else is either. And I think this just creates an unnecessary situation where it actually almost, as we discussed earlier, it almost makes people wonder, well, why are you bringing this up to begin with? And so I think it's unnecessary, and I don't see any reason to do it. And as far as meetings, the same thing. I mean, we can't make any decisions unless all 7 of us come together in a public body and vote. But it doesn't mean that people aren't going to call us by phone or ask to meet with us to discuss all kinds of other things. And again, this starts with an assumption that when we meet with somebody that there's something untold going on, and I simply don't think that's the case. As I discussed with you, I spent 33 and a half years with the police department in all kind of sensitive assignments. I had a secret government clearance, and I never once had an allegation of misconduct. I was an ethical man then, and I'm an ethical man now, and I don't think I need to defend myself any further than that.
I'll weigh in. I agree with both what Carolyn and Ken just said. You know, I agree. First, I think we have gotten lackadaisical with the executive session, so I think that's a super valid point. Again, all my campaign donations are online. You know, all I can see who's I've given money to or who I've received money from, and that's why it's there. And when it comes to the constituents, I'll meet with anybody at any time, because I take that opportunity as one-on-one time to get to know, to ask my questions, in a personal one-on-one, situation without full council here. We're trying to move things along where I can ask, a lot of questions. So, I value that time with, whether it's a resident, a builder, developer, a magician, a clown, I really don't care who it is, I'll meet with whoever, whenever. But But in the big picture, I know what the heart is behind this. I just don't think it comes across the way it's intended, if that makes any sense. So that's all I have to say about that.
Can I ask more about what brought this forward? Or
I think, and really my sentence here, 2 sentences here at the top of this paper really stated. So, we have repeatedly voiced the need to conduct activities in a transparent manner that builds trust. I don't think, any disagreements there?
No.
Okay. So, as accountability depends on transparency, the following guidelines are proposed. The idea being that, and you can look at it at the local level, you can look on the state level, you can look on the federal level. Doesn't matter, it's all the same. There is a severe lack of trust across the board in government officials. I'm not saying in this body, I'm not saying in Liberty Township, I'm not saying in the State House, I'm not saying wherever, but it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And a lot of this, and the reason behind this is to bring it out. You're right. Executive session, okay. That's the least of my worries. However, we do have to follow the rules, and I think we do take straw votes. We may not call it that, but it's like, well, what do you think about that? Well, what do you think about that? And I think quite often we come out of executive session knowing exactly how something's going to vote. With that said, that's just one piece of it. The big thing is, and again, you guys may not think financial contributions are big. I think it's huge, and you're right. By law, you can go out and look at it, but why not disclose it? And Kent said, well, maybe it makes them feel uncomfortable, or maybe you said it, Carol. Maybe it makes them feel uncomfortable, makes me feel. If it's legal, if there's nothing there, why should you feel uncomfortable?
George, let me interrupt you. It's not that it makes us feel uncomfortable. It raises an issue that isn't there. It makes it look as if there's something.
No, it totally shines the light of day on it. So that somebody, I mean, I think if you're not bringing it up, if you're not saying, Mr. Smith, yes, I agree with your position, and yes, I received $7,000 from you 3 years ago for my campaign committee. Does that mean that I can't vote one way or the other? No, but I think it's important that everybody out there, everybody that looks or reads any of the discussions on these proceedings is aware of that. It doesn't mean that you're coloring your vote, but it's letting the people if somebody says, why did that go 4-3? Why did that go 5-2? Why did this person, do whatever? Always seem to take this stance. And then it's like, oh, well, I see why. Yeah, I'm not, or you give them the information to make their own decisions. Sure, you can go out and get it. You can do a lot of things. But again, transparency is just that. Don't hide it so they have to go out, and it's not that it's hidden, but you make it difficult. The idea is, if you want to serve your customers, a customer service initiative is to make life easy on your customers. Provide them the information, the data that your customers need. In this case, our customers are the people that are sitting in the seats out here. They're all the residents of Delaware. So that's where I think it's important that, and as far as private meetings, I don't care if you talk to somebody about, whatever. I mean, we all talk to residents about different things, but if I'm sitting down and having a discussion one-on-one with a developer that then is going to come in front of council a month later or 2 months later about something we talked about, I think it's important to disclose that. Yeah, I've already talked to Mr. Smith about this. We had a discussion back on
April 13th with regards to this. Why not disclose that? What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. It's just saying, I've had discussions. That's all. Obviously, most of this, I think, and the heart of the matter is, I'm tired of seeing the money in these council seats. I'm tired of seeing the money here. I'm tired of it. And although you may say it doesn't flavor, maybe it doesn't. But you know what? I think it's important that the people out here are able to know, yeah, I got money here, and I got money here, and I got money here, and I got money here. And don't take offense, but I'm going to say it, know who owns you, okay? Hey, maybe it doesn't. I can tell you what, ain't nobody own me, because I ain't taking no money from nobody anytime. And if you've taken money, that's fine. That's your prerogative. And you can say that's because they just want good government. Well, I have different opinions on that. I think they know where their bread is buttered. But that's neither here nor there. I just think it's important that even though that information is available, that to provide best customer service available, we provide the information in a usable format at the time that it's needed. So it isn't, oh, they talked about this. Oh, now I have to go home and look on the Board of Elections and see this and look at, 26, amended filings. It's like, really? You've got some guy that's been doing finance reports forever, and he has like 4 amendments on your, post-general election? Really? It's really not that hard. So when I see that, I start saying, what is it? Why is that? I don't know. It makes it really hard to find things, though, when you have to go through 40 filings versus 7. Just my opinion.
Point of clarification, George.
Yeah.
Nobody owns me, and I don't.
I
think
didn't-
anybody
I
else in
didn't-
city
I didn't-
council feels that way either, but that's the implication. This is not just about being transparent. This is about your assumption that if people take money, that somehow that you're obligated to them, and I disagree with that premise. So we're not ever going to agree with that.
That's fine.
I don't.
That's
to say
fine.
that no, somebody owns you. I don't think any of us here feel that anybody owns us because they write a check to our campaign fund.
Yeah.
I guess the flip side of that is, though, I don't have any issue with, if someone that I've taken money from is before council, I don't have an issue with disclosing that. I don't.
What if they don't want you to say it?
I mean,
you're gonna call them ahead of time and say, you know what, 6 years ago, you gave me a check. I'm gonna bring it up at council. What if they don't want it said? Then what do you do?
well,
Then they
I mean,
shouldn't have gave you the money.
right. I mean, I guess I've taken 20, 30, 100. I think the most I took was 500 from constituents. I don't have a problem with disclosing. I don't. I mean, there's people who have nothing to hide nothing. So there's nothing to hide.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind posting it, publishing it. It is published on the Board of Elections
It's out
website.
there.
but-
Exactly.
Do you two have anything to add? I
guess
feel like I always look this way.
I guess I would just say that we're subject to Title 35. It's the entire elections. All of us as elected officials have to comply with not only the elections rules, but also campaign finance, and we have to file our filings. So our contributors are online, they're available. I appreciate that you want it to be more out front, but I don't know how we all decide that as a body versus what the state law tells us to do. We do our campaign finance filings. Do you want it disclosed at every meeting when anything happens involves something that's tertiary to, you could ask so many questions, you get so bogged down in that, but we have public records that are publicly filed and publicly available to anyone who wants to look them up. So I guess I just want to make it clear that we're doing what we're supposed to do legally.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that George wants us to do more, but we're doing everything the law requires now. We're filing our ethics filings that shows any money, I don't have any, but any money that might be from vendors that do business with, the city, things like that. And then we file our campaign finance forms annually, semi-annually, depending on what the case may be.
Could there ever be a downside to going above and beyond when it comes to transparency then?
That's probably a better question for Darren as to when you go above.
Before we add Darren to this, I want
You
to
go
hear
above
from
like what the
Jim
state
wants to
law
say
says.
too. You had something to
I
say?
think, again, I appreciate the thought, but more than any donation, things that are going to impact me are my life experiences and jobs I've had and people I know, and maybe I've been friends with someone for 20 years. And you know, maybe I was developer-wise, I worked for a developer. Maybe I was forced out of a neighborhood because a developer wanted to move in. There's a big rabbit hole I think you could go down that frankly has a lot more impact than a $1,000 check.
Okay. Well, you had a question for Darren, I think you did, or somebody did.
I just said, Lisa was asking like, is there any problem with us going above what the law requires? And I don't know that there is. I don't know that there isn't.
I'll limit my opinion as this is obviously a council decision. I will say that I can't see a problem if council members wanted to provide information to the public, even though above and beyond what the law required. My one issue would be, I don't know if you could, the enforceability issue. So if you said, we're gonna resolve to do this, and then a council member didn't, going back to Kyle's point, there's no law that says you broke the law or you're unethical, so it would kind of be a self-policing sort of thing. But
Yeah,
there
I'm not-
wouldn't
I
be
mean-
like you're gonna get exposed from council if you don't do it, but it would just be sort of, you choose to do it, I think is what I would.
I mean, I've sat here for a lot of times and heard the phrase, that's just a feel-good ordinance, just a feel-good, you know, this and that, and it's all, you know, it kind of falls into that. And you know, for me personally, I know I made a vote tonight against not smoking in parks. I know somebody who donated my campaign is not going to be happy with that with that decision.
Columbus dealt with this issue in November of 2018, and they, not necessarily with the same thing as we're discussing with disclosing contributions, but contribution limits. And you know, I think it is something that comes up in politics because people do have a tendency to distrust politicians, and especially when there is money being transferred, because money buys influence. I don't think that anyone who's making a donation is doing it because they have nothing else to do with that $500. They're hoping to use that contribution to exert some type of interest in the public policy that we're all discussing. And so when there are multiple contributions from one particular group, it does call into question if that influence is being purchased. And so as far as I'm concerned, making who gives who money, I'm willing to post it tomorrow on my Facebook page and say, this is a list of people who've donated money to my campaign. It's been neighbors and people that I've helped throughout the years. And I don't have any issue with saying, if you want to know who's influenced me, I'm proud of who's influenced me. I'll post a list of it. So I don't think there's anything to hide there. And I guess arguing that there is something to hide brings more question about it than just saying,
I don't think anybody's arguing
sure.
there's something to hide. I think
But-
everybody's just arguing and saying it's already there available.
So why
It's not
not?
hidden anywhere. It's hidden on the internet. Don't put something on Facebook. Just click the link and put copy and paste on your Facebook, and then go right to it and see it.
Okay, so here's the
George did
thing.
that.
If someone was
Oh, yeah,
here,
George did that,
let's,
so-
let's say someone was here asking for, I'm trying to make up a scenario, a variance because they want to build a garage close to the property line, or, I don't know, that wouldn't come to us. Imagine a scenario, okay? And that person has donated $1,000 to my campaign. Now, do you think that I would be as impartial as a person sitting next to me, given the same set of circumstances? Or do you think that, you know, if I said yes when everybody else said no, wouldn't it be relevant that that person also gave me $1,000? Or could it be relevant? And should we let the public decide in that type of scenario if that's relevant? Or maybe they say, we know Lisa and we know that she's impartial and that has nothing to do with
So
it.
how far down the weeds do you want to go with that? So Mrs. Smith gives you $50 donation, and she comes in a month later and speaks for her in public comment about how terrible her roads are. Is she now buying you off to get her road paved?
I don't think so, but George, are
No,
you...
it's all come down to developers. It's what's all come down to. And again, you know, I think this is, you know, and then hopefully we won't go any further, but I think this is strictly a shot at a couple people on council. Is what it is. We can dance around it, like, say it's not, but we all know exactly what it is. It's been on Facebook. It's been all over the radio. It's been on everything. This is a shot at a couple people on council who have taken money from some developers. So we don't have to quit. They all know it. We all know it. We all know it. So
why not disclose it?
Everybody does disclose it. It's on.
No, it isn't. No.
Well, it is because you post it all over Facebook.
That 1% of the population
When you
looks
say
on
follow
Facebook.
the money, you're making interpretation. You're putting it out there that somebody's buying somebody's vote.
Potentially. I'm not saying they are. I'm saying, but I'll tell you what, you can't buy somebody's vote if you don't pay them any money, right?
I think most of us on our council, when we make decisions and we vote for what's best in this community. That's why I got on council. When I got on council, I didn't even know we got paid anything. And we get paid such a minimal amount for the hours that we put in. I don't do this, and I don't care if I have to tell somebody no. It does not bother me. So, I vote for what's best in this community. Not my neighborhood, the whole community, because I'm over the whole community. I don't think that it just doesn't need to be there.
I agree. None of us are doing this job for the money. We're doing this job because we care about the community, and I'd like to think that whatever decisions we make, we're making the one that we think is best. We may disagree amongst the 7 of us of exactly what's best under each circumstance, and that's why we deliberate things. But I don't think there's anybody here that's doing this job for any other reason that we love this community and want to make a difference.
Any other comments or discussion?
It's a good discussion.
Okay, we will move on to the finance report then.
The finance report through the month of March was included in the packet. Nothing really stands out or anything I really need to share at this point in time. We're doing pretty good relative to what we had projected, and things look to be on track. Entertain any questions you may have.
So life insurance really was down. That's pretty awesome. I don't know why, but.
Sometimes the timing of those.
Oh, it's the timing, okay.
They're
Got excited. 488.
depending on when they actually get, the premiums get paid.
Okay.
Nothing's fundamentally changed related to it.
I do have one comment. I was here for a meeting for something or other on the 15th of April, and there was literally a line out the door. And when I walked inside, Dean was at the window helping people with their taxes, so you got the finance directors out to help people with their taxes.
Is that line just to drop off, or is that?
Mostly we do a lot of their tax returns for them, just as a service.
I've never seen that line.
And he obviously waited until the 15th of April to get help, so.
I did too. But
I did too, yeah.
Well, I brought mine on the 13th. There was a long line that day too.
Instituted a policy this year that employees get a percentage of the taxes they collected, so you can bet I was out there.
He's kidding.
For
anybody listening. That did not happen. See, that could be taken the wrong way if somebody was so inclined.
Okay, city manager's report?
Not much, just a couple of updates. We received 91 applications for the assistant city manager position and have begun screening those positions, and be spending the next few weeks going over resumes, meeting with candidates, and then at some point making a recommendation on probably a small group that would come in and meet with city directors, and ultimately we would probably do what we did with with Ted's position. We had the finalists meet with council members, just an opportunity to meet candidates. So
how many of those came from out of state?
We probably have a third.
People from Africa.
Yeah, Canada. Yeah, they're all over the place.
They've all been to Delaware.
Delaware's on the map. Delaware's on the map. So,
Or anybody.
yeah. Anyway, I'll be keeping you updated on that, and then I'll be out of the. I will have to miss the June 10th City Council meeting. So just wanted to make you aware of that now, and Jackie will be ACM during the acting city manager during that time. So thank you.
And I had mentioned to Tom today that possibly before we get down to the last of them, that we could put together a community committee that would, some stakeholders that would have some say-so in this position. I think this position is going to be very, not that you're not important, but this next person that comes with the job is very, very important. Because there's the potential that someday this man might just retire, and that might be a stepping stone, that I just think would be nice to have some input from the community, whether any of us sit on it, whatever, determine whatever, we can talk to Jessica and see what she thinks also, just to get some other input.
With the finalists, you mean?
With the finalists, yes.
I think it's good.
Yeah. Okay. Council comments?
Just real quick, going back to the tax department for a second, I tried to file on the 15th, the city tax, and I couldn't get the online app to work. Was there an issue with that day, or in general, or how did that turn out for you, I guess?
It's not a real robust
Okay.
online tax system. We've been searching for other solutions, and they're just not out there. The municipal income tax, there's obviously not that big of a market for people to write software. And I noticed when I was down there too, a lot of people were having some problems with getting on and getting
Okay.
things done. So we're gonna debrief a little bit, and I'm hoping we have a better solution before next year.
'Cause I promoted that pretty heavy with residents, that you could, file it online. I've been pretty excited about that. And I just know I had an issue, but I figured just because I waited till
Everyone was on there the
till
exact
3 o'clock
same time.
on Friday to do it.
5 o'clock on Friday?
Yeah.
It's a small entity that does it, a small individual, and so they just don't have a lot of bandwidth. And
Gotcha.
of course, everybody's filing.
No problem. That's all I had, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Keller?
I have nothing except just, not to belabor the point, but just one last thing about this transparency initiative, that I'm willing to abide by what's in here publicly. I don't have any issue with it, and I appreciate Councilman Hellinger bringing it forward.
Okay. Mr. Browning?
I too appreciate Councilman Hellinger's proposal. Appreciate your consistency on issues. You're probably one of the more consistent people out there. But a lot of this, whether it was over Facebook, this, or the radio, it felt accusatory, and you lost me there, and that's.
I guess I can say one more thing on transparency.
Okay.
Most of you know I'm not running again, so I closed my city council campaign account, and I ended up several $1,000s in the red on it. So, lest you think I made money in campaign contributions, I did not. I spent far more than I took in the course of that account. So, and 91 people may have applied, but 100 people cannot replace Mrs. Walker's.
Good job.
Oh.
You're
Here's your 25.
I was going to say, she can't even say that.
That was smooth.
Good job.
Nice, let's vote on that.
Mr. Schaefer?
Nope,
Oh,
nothing.
Mr. Hellinger, sorry.
Yeah,
Right at you,
nothing.
calling Mr. Schaefer.
Nothing for me either, thank you.
Okay. I will be out of town on Saturday. I'm doing another honor flight. You're out of town?
I'm out of
Yes.
town.
You're out of town too. And so George, you're in charge on Saturday? I'm
I'll
going
probably be
from
out of town, too.
2:45 till 11 o'clock at night,
I'm
so.
within driving distance,
Okay,
so,
so.
and I'll be on the cell
You guys are in
phone,
charge.
email, so.
I also closed out my city council account. I had $543 left, and I gave it to Honor Flight because that's what I love. I would like to hear the ending of the cemetery master plan. That meeting was phenomenal. So I don't know if there's I didn't get to stay for all the questions because I had a luncheon. So at some point, I would love to hear the recap of the ending of that. Did you stay for the whole thing?
I was not able to.
Yeah, I would love to hear what the comments from the public, if someone can kind of wrap those up. It was very impressive. That group that's doing that is awesome. And with that, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Adjourned.
8:49.
Next meeting.
Oh, I forgot, work session is
sweet of you.
May
Sixth.
6th.
Monday the 6th.
And we're gonna meet at 7. 6 for executive session.
6 or 6:30?
6 for executive session, 6:30 is the meeting, and we're gonna cover the point. The improvements that's gonna go on. No, that'll be on May 13th.
That
Don't
was
start that
never
again.
supposed to be done.
That was never,